I'm Dave Klein, and I'm with Accelerate Career Recruiters in Seattle, Washington. And I'm a recruiter, and I'm a home-based recruiter, and I've been a home-based recruiter for over 20 years. I love what I do. I love to train, and I loved working with a woman in Philadelphia called Diane O'Brien. Diane O'Brien has been working for most of the last decade in recruiting. Excellent trainer. She really knows how to work, and out of necessity, Diane ended up staying home because she had children and she wanted to keep the same kind of income and work as a professional, and so recruiting seemed to be an ideal situation. Myself, I had a home care business in New York for many years. I had between 150 and 200 people working for me at any given time, nurses and nursing assistants, LPNs, and so on. And the problem with that is you had personnel problems all the time. And as a result of that, I had gone to a training session. Someone asked me to go to a training session with a gentleman by the name of Steve Finkel. Steve Finkel's a national recruiting trainer located in St. Louis, Missouri. And I went and I paid attention, and consequently, quite by accident, I had paid attention enough to where I had made a couple of placements that I used for vacations. So somebody called me up and they said, can you do this, can you do that? So as a result of that, I ended up doing some recruiting. When I sold my corporation in New York, my wife and I had always wanted to relocate to Seattle, so we relocated from New York to Seattle, and I started a home-based recruiting company. And prior to that, I had done some home-based recruiting, as I said, by accident. The lowest placement I ever made, the first placement, the least amount of money I've ever made in a recruiting situation was $1,200. The largest commission that I've ever made in recruiting is $56,400. And that was a single placement. So that was very, very high. The $1,200 was very, very low. And in between that, I've done many, many placements, and I've trained people to do many placements. Working from home is like, if you're disciplined and if you can keep all your balls in the air, it's a wonderful kind of thing to do. Here at the National Association of Home-Based Recruiters, or as we fondly call it, NAHBR, and one of the reasons we call it NAHBR, and I'll get to that, but right now, actually, Diane was talking to a neighbor over the fence, and that's one of Diane's sourcing people and recruiters, and that's done very, very well. So it's that kind of a thing. There's a lot of talent at home in the United States today. People that are very well educated, and sometimes they're not so well educated, but they're articulate enough to stay disciplined, to stay on the phone. This is a very disciplined kind of activity. It requires telephone persistence, and it requires an enormous amount of telephone time. If you can stay on the telephone, deal with C-level kind of personalities, and keep a lot of balls in the area, both clerically, it's a very organized business. If you take an average recruiter that's organized, they will ultimately make more income than the top salesman, that the bada bee guy, or the person that can really sell. They're the hunter kind of personality that's disorganized. A hunter kind of personality that's organized in this business is lethal in terms of the kind of production they're going to have. It's not a simple process to learn. It requires an enormous amount of training. And that's where Diane O'Brien and Dave Klein come in. I've trained literally hundreds of people to be recruiters. Diane has trained many people to be recruiters. We know the process for this business. The process basically is you need a quiet work area if you're going to work at home. You can't be disturbed by children, dogs, cats, or pets. It needs to be kind of a professional relationship as though you're in an office and you're privately talking. Interruptions just do not work for this business. You need to be organized. Now, in terms of cost, it's very low. What do you need? You need a fax machine, you need a telephone, and you need high-speed internet, preferably. Now, I know there's some areas of the country where you don't get it. You can work around anything if you have to, and you keep track of your numbers. And basically, people that train in recruiting, they go out and they tell people all these very, very sophisticated. All businesses, whether it's recruiting or whatever the sales situation is, it has to do with learning the basics, implementing the basics, and the rest of it will come. What we're really looking for, what you're really looking for in terms of this business is you want to send people out and get them either phone to phone, telecommuting, with a hiring authority and a candidate, or face to face. That is basically what we're doing. That sounds not so complicated, but it can be extraordinarily complicated, because if you really think about it, we have the only commodity, talent, that can at the end of the line say no. No other product out there can say no. This bottle of water that I got down here at Costco's, this Arrowhead, that cannot say no when I go to buy it. The person taking the pharmacist, and I place pharmacist and engineer people, they can say no ultimately at the end. What's the reason for them saying no? We never really know for sure. We're told this, we're told that, but ultimately people make their own decisions regarding, what they choose to do. Why home-based recruiting? Well, you can take the kids to school, you can pick the kids up, you can call people at night. The flexibility is remarkable. You have an enormous amount of flexibility, and at the same time you can set your, that flexibility of your schedule, and at the same time you can go out there and kind of exercise that need to be extraordinarily productive, and you can make an enormous amount of money at the same time. This is absolutely not a get-rich-quick scheme at all. In fact, it's no scheme. A scheme is where you go out and you try to kind of cut corners. This you cannot cut corners with. You have to do certain things and then you get certain results. I'm very mathematical. I believe in numbers. Numbers don't lie. People lie about numbers. As Benjamin Disraeli once said, there's liars, damn liars, and statisticians. So sometimes we ourselves make our own statistics and they're not exactly true. So, what is home-based recruiting? Home-based recruiting is this. You need to get a telephone and stay onto it. You need a headset, unless you want to just listen with a phone for a while, but a headset is very important. And you need to make 4 to 6 hours of good, solid phone calls, creating a database every single day. Now, those calls will drop off. If you listen to recruiting trainers, they'll say, well, make 100 calls a day, make 80 calls a day. If you learn this business correctly, you're not going to make that many calls because you're going to be busy with activity that will produce results. And in that activity, you're looking to get job orders, and then you're going to source candidates. That's identifying who they are, and then you're going to recruit those specific candidates for positions by using trained eliminators to make sure you want to talk to them. Steve Finkel has a saying, I can only guarantee you that it's absolutely true. He says, when you're dealing with people and you get a positive from them, it must be a neutral statement. And when it's a negative, believe it in spades. I can only tell you that that's been my experience. Anyway, there's going to be a great deal more coming about the National Association of Home-Based Recruiters. Both Diane and I are very excited about the possibility of working with you and with other people throughout the United States. We both are really very, very fond of recruiting, and we understand that it's very disciplined. And Diane and I go back to when her husband introduced me to her many years ago. Diane is probably one of the most professional, hardworking recruiters and trainers that I've ever met. Thank you for your time. I'll look forward to meeting you either on the internet or through one of our training films or in one of our conferences face to face. Thank you for taking the time to listen.